Catus Maximus here, this time with a review of the Allen 11th 913 3/8 inch premium ratchet. I'm calling this the premium ratchet because there's actually 11901, which is a cheaper version. Surprising, Allen USA. I don't know if these are actually available anymore. Some pop up here and there, but couldn't find a ton of information on them. Besides some message board posts from more than a decade ago about them. Definitely a pretty nice ratchet. Obviously I didn't pay much, only $8. Basically brand new. I thought I'd give it a shot here. I really like the design. It's really a pretty compact head. Super duper thick. Just nice thick handle. And the largest word forged I've ever seen. They probably should have turned the letters sideways and just had it say forged all the way down the bottom. Really surprising. Otherwise, it's a nice little ratchet. I really like just the thick, compact, just like very stout, kind of almost hammer-like ratchets. Pretty cheap. It has an issue here. As you can see, it has extremely low back drag in both directions, so it's not ratcheting so great. But I figured since it was brand new, we can reverse it, and it just doesn't seem to work at all. I figured, why not? Why not make a little video about it? I did quickly pop it open, and so that's kind of the point. Let's go ahead and service it first. Well, not first. First, we'll test how strong the ball detent is, and it's actually pretty strong on this. I wouldn't say that it is snap-on level where you need a screwdriver to pry the socket off, but it's definitely pretty solid. One thing I thought was funny is Allen, as you can tell by the hex shape in their name, they're the ones who really popularized hex key wrenches. That's why they're called Allen wrenches. And so you think an Allen ratchet would of course use a 6-sided Allen head cap screw. No, they're using a torque screw, which I think is a little bit hilarious. Let's go and knock it apart. And I've already popped this open quickly, but I didn't, repair it just so we could both share the experience here. And what I discovered is it appears to be what a first generation of what I've been calling the block and pawl heart spring round head ratchet design, which appears to be basically, I don't mean to say final design, but really one of the best designs and one of the designs that's really going to last the test of time. This just appears to be a earlier version. One thing that I find surprising is how tight this reverse lever is. It's actually so tight on there that you have to just tap on the screw a little bit in order to get it to pop loose. So I've never seen a ratchet with machining that tight, but I really do like it. As soon as we pop it off, we see a very similar mechanism. And what I mean by first generation is this has this piece of wire in here, and that's actually the spring, and it's just like a block and pawl. If we pull this out here, we just have basically a block of steel, and then the back side of this pawl has just a little bit of a curvature, and so when the ratchet turns, it just drives the pawl into the side of the ratchet. This one, what's happened is, and it's the reason why grease shouldn't be used. I've certainly learned it over the years of doing this YouTube channel. Many people remind me, and this is a perfect example of that, is the grease has gotten a little bit sticky, so this pawl just really doesn't want to slide back and forth. It's not stuck, but it's just too much resistance for this little spring. The difference between this design and what might be in like these Icon roto-heads, which is a heart spring, is both of these look almost exactly the same, but except for in the inside of this, they modified the spring a little bit so it actually has 2 hooks that go into the pawl, and it kind of loops around, comes up to a point, and then comes back around and loops again. So it's like a heart or an upside down heart. And I think that's an improvement over this design, which just has 1 hook and is just maybe not quite enough tension. And this spring is a very odd spring. It just looks like a crunched up piece of wire. If you ever have to, sometimes these little pieces of wire can break, and if you ever have to make a new spring, you really want to use piano wire, genuine piano wire. So we'll pull that out and pull out the little pawl, and all we have to do is just clean this up, and I'll put a little bit of light grease in there, and that should really get it back in business. There we go, got it all cleaned up. You can see how this design is really becoming standard, because in the heart spring version, they don't even have these extra cuts, but it's a really pretty simple piece of metal that they're machining. So it's one of the reasons taking over, and it really is pretty reliable if the pawl can actually slide back and forth properly. And it's hard to see the curvature on camera, but if you have it against here, you can see how the pawl wants to rock a little bit. And that's really how this thing works. It's just simply trying to drive it into the face of the ratchet. Once again, I'll point out how darn thick this head is. That is absolutely, for how compact it is, this design is nice because you can still see that this is just a massive pawl. If we put this back in here, just a huge amount of space. And you can see how it's kind of operating now, how now the paw will actually stay in place, and it just offers a huge amount of surface area and a lot of strength even in a compact design. And this is a head that is not going to crack on you, which I've learned on some of the new Britain ratchets, which have a very strong pawl design. People who would use cheater bars or hammer on them, they tried to make the heads really compact on the new Britons, and people have had some of them crack. This is one that's not, and it's actually kind of a shame. I want to try to find 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch versions of this round head because it's really pretty good. And here we are, we have it all back together. And now, works just fine. I can see how they modified the design because this early design, that one wire just isn't enough tension. Although there is something good to be said about that because the backlash on this is super low. This is very low backlash ratchet, that's for sure, or excuse me, back drag. The amount of force it takes to actually go against the ratcheting action. This is just super duper low. And that could be an advantage in a variety of situations. And pretty good machining because we can see there's a little bit of anvil play, but it's more than acceptable for a round head ratchet. So definitely pretty satisfied with this thing. And now that it works properly, pretty happy with it. Seems pretty well made once again, except for they could have just used a little bit of a stronger spring, but what this does is if you keep it clean, so this is a mechanism that probably won't like getting very dirty and that you're going to have to take apart repeatedly. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to do. But for that reward, you get a very compact head with just super low back drag and still a very, very strong design. The nice thing about this design is that design does not lead itself to skipping. Usually it will just not, if like it is, it will just have gotten, gummed up and won't work at all. But once it engages, the more force you put on it, the harder it drives the pawl into the body of the ratchet. So it may like slip one tooth and then just be absolutely solid. But you can hear that. You can hear how soft that is. If we compare that to, say, these modern heartspring ones, which just offer a bit more tension. One, the reverse lever is definitely much more a much stronger detent there, but you can hear it. And it just ensures a little bit more reliability, even though this ratchet right here has, it easily has twice as much back drag, if not more. So there's always a trade-off there. If you have really strong pawl springs, it's going to make it have more resistance on the back drag. So it's very difficult to make a ratchet that's super reliable, that can handle dirty and gritty environments, but also have very low back drag. But I think this Allen strikes it pretty well. I don't think it's such a bad tool at all. And what I mean by compact head is, here's like this Titan 90 tooth, and the head of this thing is basically the same width. It's a little bit taller with that reverse switch. We can see that there. It is just a little bit taller. But otherwise, I like this little ratchet and just wanted to share it with everybody and kind of also show what a early version of the block and pawl design that is now basically standardized, at least in all roto-head ratchets, look like. And you do get a pretty stout ratchet. I'm sure that this thing, it would be the anvil that shears every time before anything else breaks on this round head. And I wouldn't mind using cheater bars on it because it just has such a thick neck on it. It's just a stout ratchet. I like the classic knurling. I like the way they beveled and radius the end of the handle there. Just a comfortable, nice round head. I think Allen actually did a pretty good job there. They probably could have just used a bit stronger of a spring to really increase its overall reliability. And I don't think they should have had an 11901. This is 11913 again, and so that kind of confuses people because you'll get an Allen USA round head ratchet, and it'll be the lesser model versus this one, which is the more premium unit. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been spending time watching and subscribing to the Catus Maximus channel and commenting. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.